There is currently a quarterback who is being vastly undervalued in the betting markets, so much so that professional bettor Hitman is taking his over. Yes, you heard that right. Notorious season-long underbetter Hitman is taking an over. To find out who Hitman likes and the process behind his season-long player totals, stick around for today's show. What's going on, friends? Welcome back to Forward Progress here on the Hammer Betting Network and powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. Before we get started today, I want to remind everyone that we are sponsored by Pinnacle. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook and available to bettors in Ontario. Find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. Must be 18 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly and not available in the US. Today, guys, we have a absolute banger video for you. I'm joined by Hitman at Hitman428. We got a specific player that Hitman's kind of circled in his notes that he likes. And I want to say he's hitting his overs, not blanketing them, but his season-long overs. So before we get into this specific player, Hitman, I want to talk to you quickly about your kind of process behind betting totals. So you're targeting an over for this episode, but I'm told you're usually an unders better. So like, what's your process like, and why an over versus an under today?
Yeah, so if you're betting season-long props, typically you're going to look to play unders. And it's very rare that I do have overplays, probably like 5 to 10% of my plays that I'll have for the entire year in season-long props are overs. And the reason that I typically look to play the unders is the cat's out of the bag. A lot of people talk about this. It's a few factors. One is due to injuries. Player gets injured. They only play 12, 13, 6, 4 games, whatever the number is. Obviously, you're not going to hit a season-long over. The second's role changes. You could, for example, have a committee running back where the guy might be pegged as a starter, but he ends up being the backup for the second half of the season. Probably not hitting an over in that circumstance. Then the third's just poor performance, which happens to many players. So there's a lot of reasons to go under. That's why typically pros look to bet the unders in these markets. But for this specific guy, I like the over.
All right, I'll get in without enough teasing for today. But quickly, before we get into our pick, I just want to mention that it's a quarterback. And if we look at quarterbacks in previous years, you have a guy like Matthew Stafford last year who, exactly what you mentioned here. I'm sure a lot of people were betting his over after winning the Super Bowl, and he gets hurt, and it's a clean under for the under bettors, and it's a no sweat season long under, and you love to see those. But today we're targeting a quarterback, and it is going to be Deshaun Watson, and we're looking at his number. You can find him around at different prices, but at some other books, we found him around at 3,650.5 passing yards, minus 110 on both sides. So, Hitman, tell us why you like this number so much.
Yeah, so my first rule of thumb is if I'm going to bet an over, it's got to be a number that I think somebody can hit in probably about 14 games. And I think that if we get 14, 15 games out of Watson, I feel safe that he does hit this. Let's start with the fact that Kevin Stefanski has been a run-heavy coach throughout his tenure, but he's an analytically driven coach, and obviously the analytics tend to favor passing. And it looks like there's a new shift in the Browns' offense after they traded for Deshaun Watson last year. And let's be honest, there's a reason they gave up so many picks and that big of a contract, a guaranteed contract, to get Watson. And the Browns' offseason moves have really showed that this is a team that's going to lean more on the pass. They don't have Kareem Hunt anymore, and they really didn't get any noteworthy backup running back behind Nick Chubb. And then you have at wide receiver, not only they added Elijah Moore, traded a pick for him, they added Marquise Goodwin in free agency, but they also, their first draft pick this year, they added a wide receiver, Tillman. So it looks like it's a big shift, and you're adding them to Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper. This is a Browns team that some beat writers have speculated is going to go a lot more 3-4 wide receivers. Then you have the fact that Watson's number is just so deflated from what happened last season. He had 2 horrific weather games, obviously had rust, new system. So I'm giving him a little bit of a pass for how bad the numbers were last year. And let's remember that his last full season in the NFL, this man threw for 300 passing yards a game and led the NFL in pass yards. His worst full season of his career, 256 yards per game, which would put him on pace for 4,300 yards over a 17-game season. So I think that there's just a lot of room for Watson to get this over, and I don't expect him to play nearly as bad as he played last season.
Now, these lines aren't posted on Pinnacle yet, but we'll probably get them pretty soon. Is there a number that you would play this up to? Like, is 4,000? What's your limit here? Is 4,000 minus 110 over your limit? What do you have here as your top end?
Yeah, I would say up to 3,800. We could go up on this one. And again, like I said, if I'm playing a season long over, I got to think it's off by a considerable amount. And this opened at 3,500 some spots. 3,650 still good. I think that up to 3,800, it's worth a bet.
Yeah, I like that. And one more question for you before we head out here. I'm looking around at other books, and he's actually listed, Deshaun Watson is listed at 30-1 to lead the NFL in passing yards. Pretty much a consensus around other books. And like you mentioned, his last full season in the NFL, he did lead the league in passing yards. And over the last 5 years, 5 different winners. I mean, do we think Mahomes repeats, or at 30-1? Do you think there's like a small chance that Deshaun Watson could come in here and take this?
It's probably worth maybe a little sprinkle. I mean, I personally didn't bet it. Would I be opposed to somebody betting it? No, I wouldn't. One little devil's advocate that I would give to that bet is that Cleveland tends to have some bad weather games, maybe 1, maybe 2 during a season. And that could really put an impact on the ceiling that Watson could reach as far as his passing yards. I still think that the season-long number is way off, where I'm not even really considering the weather factor because I just think the number's off. But as far as Watson reaching a ceiling, which is he's probably going to need to get to 4,800 passing yards or more, the potential bad weather that he could have in 1 or 2 games this year is probably enough to talk me off of making that bet.
Yeah, fair enough here. The weather is important. And as you mentioned, injury concern, it's always a factor here that you have to consider, right? So, I mean, hey, I love the play so far. Deshaun Watson coming into the new system didn't look good last year, but like you said, he has that year under his belt. He's done it before. I mean, he's a guy who knows good throwing the ball. He has a good cast. I mean, I love all these arguments for Deshaun Watson, and right after this video is done, I'm going to go play this myself. So that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for tuning into our video, guys. We really appreciate it. Before we go, I want to remind everyone to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and to hit that notification bell. We're going to be dropping videos like this throughout the entire offseason. So if you want to be the first to watch it and you want to get in before the market moves, make sure you have notifications on. So without further ado, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. For Hitman, I'm producer Jason, signing off. This has been Forward Progress right here on the Hammer Betting Network.